Well, your UCF Knights start out 2-0, beating Sam Houston 45-14. We're going to go through it all and also talk about what this team really is heading into Week 3. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, as always, a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. What a night. What a night. UCF obviously wins 45-14 against Sam Houston. I said it. Solo dolo. I don't even know. I feel like I'm old for saying something like that, but I said it. Just me tonight. We are working, or I am working, on getting a co-host for some of these post-game pods because Nick, obviously, he is on the pregame show that we host and the post-game show. He comes down from Tampa to Orlando, so I record. I live about 10 minutes from the stadium. I recorded about, it's 1 a.m. You're seeing this at 8 a.m. on Sunday. So I'm recording this at 1. Nick's driving back to Tampa. I'm not making him get on. So in coming weeks, we will, at least for the home game, post-game pods, we will have a co-host coming up here soon. But we have a lot to get to. I want to say thank you for those who, again, tuned into our pre- and post-game shows on our channel. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, follow me on Twitter. I post the links when we go live. But for home games, we're doing pre- and post-game pods, and those went really well. We had a lot to discuss tonight, and we were a lot more positive tonight than we were last week. But let's get into it. I said prior to the game that you're going to need, number one, KJ Jefferson was the number one thing that you needed to really see an improvement from, right? Last week, we saw it. The team looked really good except for KJ. KJ looked really rough, which made, I think, the greater Knight Nation afraid because you're like, okay, you know in college football and you know in football in general, in the NFL, right? If you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to be very successful. And last week, the running game was really good. I mean, 452 yards on the ground was incredible. The defense played fast, ferocious, but KJ wasn't good. And we said going into week 2, KJ's going to need to show significant improvement. That last week was just a fluke. That it was a trying to do too much, trying to prove something. And I think, by all accounts, we're going to get into everything. We're going to get into the running game. And listen, we did talk a lot on the post-game show, but I gathered my thoughts a little bit for the post-game pod. KJ looked like what was advertised as the quarterback of this team. I had somebody tweet me out, and I'm actually going to find this live. I was going to do it on the post-game show, but it was a 56-minute show, and I just didn't get to reading. And I'm not calling this fan out. I want to make this very clear. I love discourse. I love to talk with you guys and get your opinions on stuff. And at Grillin24Q on X said, KJ is not what we thought. But if he can just make some basic throws to keep defenses honest, that stacks the line, we will be fine. Problem is, he's not been good at even that. And granted, he sent this at 9:21. This was at halftime. KJ looked really good tonight. I also want to preface this. It was against Sam Houston. I'm pulling the same card I pulled out last week. Just because this was a step up in competition does not mean that we can just take the game and take everything that came out of it and said, this team is elite. We don't know yet. A lot of teams in college football this week specifically, they had to really put on tape how good they really are or how not good they really are. You saw Oklahoma State play Arkansas and really have to fight and claw to get a win at home. You had to see Kansas State go to Tulane and really show the type of team they are. And then you see some other teams like Cincinnati losing to Pitt when you had the game won. You learn who teams are when you have to face competition. And to be fair, though UCF faced much better competition than New Hampshire in week 2 by facing Sam Houston, you're not going to know until next week. But with that being said, KJ did not look average or below average. He looked good. He looked really good. The passes there was only one pass. I said on the post-game live show, there was only one pass. One pass where you could look at it and say, that was a bad pass. And it was the screen to Xavier Townsend, or they were trying to get him in the flat, and he just overthrew him really high. Right? That was the only throw that you could look at from KJ and say, that was a bad throw. It was a bad throw. Everything else from KJ Jefferson tonight was perfect. And I don't throw that word around loosely. His passes were insanely accurate. He should have thrown over 200 yards if it wasn't for the flags on both the Randy Pittman catch and the Kobe catch. He would have gone throw over 200 yards, right? Ran when he needed to run. When there was nothing downfield, he didn't force the ball downfield. He ran for yards. Let's just look at his stats. KJ was 12 of 15 for 169 yards, 80% completion percentage. He ran for 9 times for 50 yards, 5.6 yards a carry. That's what you need. And he was way more effective running the football this week than last week. I think last week in his head, he didn't want to run the football. He was very determined to stay in the pocket and make throws inside the pocket. This week, if something was broken, it looked like KJ Jefferson. It looked like what we are used to seeing out of KJ Jefferson playing the game of football. And again, I will emphasize, it's Sam Houston. But after how bad his first game was against a lesser opponent, to see him come out against Sam Houston and put on a really good performance, I think gives all of Night Nation a small sigh of relief for now. Because at the end of the day, TCU is next week. And if you come out and you play like you did week 1, the week 2 performance ain't going to matter a whole lot. Right? So that's going to be my little bow on KJ. I think he played extremely well from last week's performance. He looked more confident. He had the whole package this week. Now we just got to keep putting those opportunities together. And Gus Malzahn called a hell of a game on offense. It looked great. The drives were poignant. They knew what they were doing on every single drive. The first drive, we didn't even talk about this. The first drive, 4 flags on the first drive. They were doing everything they could to not score. And they still scored a touchdown on the opening drive. So credit KJ Jefferson, credit Gus Malzahn. It all worked tonight. Let's talk about the running backs. Listen, folks, it's not an exaggeration when we've said over and over that the running backs are going to be this team. The running the football has always been type of Gus Malzahn's type of thing. It's always been what his teams are really, really good at, is making sure you can pound the rock. And even coming into the season, even last week, we looked at it and we said, the 4-headed monster at running back with Miles, with RJ Harvey, Penny Boone, Johnny Richardson. This week just solidified once again, UCF is going to be a tough out regardless. KJ could be having the most average game possible, but UCF is dangerous running the football. 57 carries for 384 yards. I'm just going to go on the list. RJ Harvey, 19 attempts, 19 carries for 126 yards and 4 touchdowns. Everybody in the booth wanted him to break the record. He tied the all-time single-game record for most touchdowns in a single game. He tied it. If he would have just got one more touchdown, he would have broken the record. Didn't happen. It was late in the game. Gus said, "You're done for the day," which is the smart move. It is the smart move, but as a fan or somebody covering it, you want to see history. They've almost broke history in 2 straight games. They could have had the all-time most rushing yards last week. missed it by, I think, like 9 yards. And then RJ could have had the most touchdowns in a single game this week, missed it by 1, but tied the record. So they're putting up big-time numbers on the ground. Penny Boone, 10 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. Me and Steven Leonard had, not an argument, but Penny Boone is RB4, in my opinion. You can make the argument, and Steven does, that he is running back 3, and Johnny is used more as a receiver this year with how they're using him. But Penny Boone is RB4, and I haven't watched the Gus presser yet. I came home and I hit record immediately. But Steven said that Gus, in his presser, mentioned Penny Boone and how he's going to be big time for him as the year goes along. And you kind of see it. RJ got 7 or 8 more carries this game, which I think was by design a little bit. Better competition. You're not going to be using the backs as much as you were last week. You gave RJ a little less work last week and kind of put more into it this week. But Penny didn't really get in until the end of the game. He got all of his carries and his work late, which I think for fans that are clamoring for more Penny Boone, it's going to get there. But Miles Montgomery just looks like the clear-cut best back behind RJ, and it's not close. 9 carries, 51 yards, and a touchdown. Listen, the way he runs the football, we talked about it last week. Miles Montgomery is going to be really, really good. Like, Penny Boone is a big, strong, physical back. He's got some wheels. You don't really expect Penny Boone to, have the wheels he does with how big he is. Miles Montgomery plays bigger than his size, but is also speedy quick. He is RJ 2.0 in the way that he runs the football. So when RJ goes out, Miles Montgomery is clear-cut RB2. And we said that last week. He showed it again today. He's going to help UCF out tremendously. Xavier Townsend, 4 attempts for 51 yards, 4 carries for 51 yards. Really got him involved a lot more this week. You need to. He is a playmaker. He makes plays happen. Even when plays are breaking down, he makes defenders miss. I obviously mentioned KJ Jefferson, 9 attempts for 50 yards. Incredible, like I said. Jakari Brown, 2 carries for 32 yards. I'm not going to get into Jakari too much. I think he could have had even a lot more if he would have pulled the ball late in the game. But the one run, he's got some wheels on him. He is a fast quarterback when you get him in open space. Johnny Richardson, 2 carries for 19 yards. So everybody was involved. Everybody in the run game, 6 touchdowns running the football is just insane. And listen, teams are going to play for that. But I said it last week. If KJ can't put good tape on, or put good film on tape, or however you want to say it, if KJ doesn't show people that he can throw the football, they're just going to load the box every single time because they know that if UCF comes to town, UCF is going to run the football all over you. So now KJ is put on film. He is accurate at the football. He will get his playmakers the football. So teams, it's going to be hard. Defending UCF is going to be difficult, regardless of what team you are. And it's always been like that. But specifically this year, you need to account for a lot of different players. Let's quickly talk about the receiving. Kobe Hudson was the clear-cut MVP when it came to that. He could have had a lot more opportunities. He had the face mask catch, which I don't even understand. Like, it's so rare for something like that to get called. The one he didn't catch, he had five catches for 104 yards on 6 targets. The one he didn't catch should have been a pass interference. That was a pass interference. I don't know if they, because of I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but it's almost like the refs gave the defender the benefit of the doubt there because on the previous, 50-50 ball, he grabbed his face mask. I have to watch the playback, but Kobe was incredible tonight. He caught every ball that came his way. I think him and KJ really have a good rapport with each other when throwing the football. KJ's been giving him opportunities. And sometimes last year, that was kind of, you're like, just throw the ball up and give him a chance. You have a guy like Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson, give him an opportunity. And KJ is giving Kobe his opportunities. It's not coming in the red zone. Like, they're not throwing when it gets in the red zone. But when you have RJ Harvey, Miles Montgomery, KJ Jefferson, Penny Boone, you're not needing to throw the ball on the goal line. you're running it in because you're just that dominant. Xavier Townsend, 3 catches for 17 yards. That's coupled with his 4 carries for 51 yards. I think Xavier right now is a silent assassin for one of the most, if not the most important players on offense and in special teams. He's going to be really good, and he's finally getting an opportunity to be a clear-cut too. And again, efficient. 3 catches on 17 yards on 4 targets. So only had 1 drop pass, but I think that wasn't even on him. That was on the bad KJ throw to him. Randy Pittman, 2 catches for 32 yards. Again, that Randy Pittman needs to get more involved, but they're not throwing it as much. They're really running the football down teams' throats, and it's working right now. Trent Whittemore had 1 catch for 11 yards as well. That was a really good ball by KJ. That was fit in on a dime. I would go watch the highlights again because that one was really good by KJ Jefferson. All right. Let's get through the offensive numbers. What I really liked, total yards, 554 yards of total offense. Really impressive at 28 first downs. It was 8 of 13 on third down, which I really like to see. That was one of the numbers we were a little about was the third down numbers last week. They really improved that this time around. Penalties, they had 6 for 45. You definitely want to clean that up. But 4 of them came on the first drive. So they had 2 penalties the rest of the game. I don't see penalties continuing to be an issue for the Knights moving forward, but they definitely want to clean up that first drive and look at that first drive on film and say, how do we have this many? What's going on? But besides that, they were really good. 5 of 6 in the red zone. And yeah, I think if you just look at the offense in general, it was all around good. All around good, and it gives you a lot of confidence heading into next week. Well, let's talk about the defense, because the defense, let's call it like it is. For UCF to have a successful year, the defense needs to continue to play like they've been playing. And we came in, and people wanted to give us flack that we were giving Sam Houston too much credit. And I think Sam Houston showed that they are better than New Hampshire, easily. But I think what people aren't giving, I think you take away the trick play. The trick play, call like it is, it was busted by UCF. It was busted coverage. It was a great play call by Sam Houston, but you play that right, it's a 45-7 game. Sam Houston couldn't get the ball on UCF's side until late in the game. They did have 286 total yards on offense. And if you just watch the defense play, they're very physical. They only allowed 67 rush yards. Again, it is Sam Houston. The pass yards, they allowed 219, but the one was the long touchdown run, or the long touchdown pass from Noah Smith, the receiver. And then the rest of it came really late in the game. I did say on the post-game live show, I do notice some leaky things when it came to the pass defense, to which Steven and Nick laughed in my face. But I will say, it'll be interesting to see in the weeks ahead how good the pass defense is. I'm intrigued to see it. I really want to see this defense go up against somebody that matters. Not that Sam Houston and New Hampshire don't matter, but you want to see them go up against some better competition. Had a good amount of tackles for loss. That's 7 tackles for loss the defense did. I believe they had 2 interceptions. Let me go back in my brain and remember the 2 interceptions. I'll find it. But if you just go down the list, I mentioned Nigel E. Kelly. We talked about it last week that the edges were not it last week. The edges were probably the biggest negative on the defense. This week, Nigel E. Kelly came to play. 6 tackles, 2 solo. He had a sack, a tackle for loss, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. Nigel E. Kelly was everywhere. You could argue he should have had a touchdown at the end there when the pass looked like it was behind. He played it perfectly, but they ended up just calling it an incomplete pass. Nigel E. Kelly played outstanding. Obviously, a big-time Miami transfer. Last week, he didn't look like he was even on the field at times. The edges weren't really getting a lot of pressure. Today, you notice them. Quadric Bullard came up big time with 6 total tackles. The linebackers. On the post-game live show, we mentioned UCF has 5 quality potential starting linebackers. You have your starters in Deshaun Pace and Ethan Barr. Even though Deshaun Pace did not start today, and Gus Malzahn did not comment as to why that was. I don't know if we will find out, but I will say there had been, Deshaun Pace, when he was at Cincinnati, there were character concerns at Cincinnati. Everything we've noticed by him has been stand up, seems like an amazing human, amazing teammate, but clearly there was something that led to him not starting in the game. Now, he only got sat for one series, which, to be honest, for me, that's not really, it probably wasn't that big of a deal, because if it was that big of a deal, you're not just sitting him for one series. But besides the point, right? Ethan Barr and Deshaun Pace have been really good. But coming off the bench, you have Josiah Pierre, Texas Tech transfer who started, and X-Ray Alexander, who was a true freshman last year and was an FCS All-American as a freshman. X-Ray Alexander looked really good tonight. He looked really good. And not just those four. Andrew Harris, I also feel good about coming in and playing minutes. So the big thing on defense from last year was we don't have linebackers. And now, at least for the first 2 weeks, you come in and you're like, I think we feel pretty confident about our linebacker room. Now, Sam Houston did a lot of... They tried to run the football. They really did. I mean, if you look at their running, they ran the ball 30 times. They ran 30 times for 67 yards, 2.2 yards per carry. I mean, and again, I know it is Sam Houston. I want to keep saying that. I want to keep emphasizing it. 30 times for 6-7 yards. I think the run defense is going to be way more improved when we play an actual opponent. The way they run to the ball is just different. It's just different. The way that Ted Roof calls the game is just different. And that's no disrespect to Addison Williams. We love Addison Williams. Hell of a recruiter. Hell of a coach. But the way the game is being called and the way they are stopping some of those run gaps, and not saying they stop them all the time. There were a couple runs that went for about 8-9 yards a carry tonight. But 30 carries for 67 yards. Impressive work by the defense. Let's talk about a couple more guys on the defense that, again, I think need to be mentioned. Dalen Dotson. Nick Geddes brought him up in the postgame live that the experiment is working. He played some defensive tackle at his last school, came in, was going to be an edge. John Walker gets hurt. He's inside. He had 1.5 tackles for loss, 3 total tackles. When John Walker comes back, I'm sure they kind of move him back to the edge, even though, let's call it like it is, the two other edges, Isaiah Nixon, Caven Call, they are really good. Specifically Isaiah Nixon. Isaiah Nixon has shown some really good things when he gets into the game that I think is going to really help UCF when it comes to depth moving forward. But no, Dalen Dotson has played extremely well. Braden Marshall, again, another guy, pushed a blocking wide receiver and allowed a screen pass in the flat to only go for a yard when it could have gone for a lot more because he's just pushing guys. Everybody on the defense, Mac McWilliams getting an interception. Sheldon Arnold getting the interception, even though Sheldon Arnold did let up a big play, the trick play, but they both got interceptions. One guy, Malachi Lawrence, as a total, the team had 3 QB hurries. They had 1 sack. So I said it on the post-game live. Besides this, everything from the defense was great. Defense is playing much better. They haven't got a lot of sacks, which sacks don't equate. Sacks are just a stat. It doesn't really tell the whole story when it comes to how many times did you get to a quarterback or kind of force the quarterback to speed up their game. They did have 3 quarterback hurries, which is not bad. It's not great. I think they need to really get more, especially when they are playing better opponents. The sack thing does make me a little nervous, though. I will say, and I know Nick and Steven looked at me like I was crazy. The team a week ago that played Sam Houston, Rice had 7 sacks. We only got 1. Now, it is a little different. We just play a little, we do hurry the quarterback up a little bit more and kind of force the quarterback to make the wrong decisions. But At the same time, we're going to need to create pressure against some of the quarterbacks we're playing. So hopefully, I'm going to the presser today. Hopefully I can ask Ted Roof about what his feeling is on the sack numbers and how he feels the quarterback hurries and pressures is helping them in these games. But all in all, the defense played outstanding. There's not really much you can go into, but they are doing what they're supposed to against teams they're supposed to be dominating. And there's not really a guy you can point at that says he might be an issue as of right now. Next week's going to be very telling. But let me see if there's anything else. Like I said, guys, this was a very relaxing game. UCF dominated from opening to close. There wasn't really anything. I'm looking just to make sure. They ran 74 total plays. It all was pretty good. Yeah, there's not really anything I'm seeing besides the penalties that definitely need to get cleaned up. But again, they did clean it up the rest of the game, and yeah, I think that's it. 26 minutes, almost 30-minute post-game pod. Listen, closing thoughts. These are my closing thoughts. The preseason is over. You played two now, and I want to make this very clear. You look in college football, you look at Oregon. I don't even know what the score against Boise State is, but only beating Idaho by 14. You see a lot of these teams you're supposed to beat, and they go in and beat these top-tier teams. Look at Northern Illinois, right? Like, they come in and they beat Notre Dame. So, UCF, when I call these games preseason, I think it's almost a disservice sometimes. Because at the end of the day, they're taking care of business. They're not going to get all the credit in the world for beating the team they're supposed to beat. But at the end of the day, they are beating teams that have nothing to lose. And you're starting 2-0. You're 4 games away from a bowl game, but this year's so much more than a bowl game. Last year, you're fighting for a bowl game. This year, you're fighting for a potential Big 12 title bid. Not saying it's going to happen. We need to see how they fare against TCU. The preseason is now over. I can't wait to break down TCU. I can't wait to look at TCU and see what the Knights can do. Because I said later tonight, you're not going to get any in between after TCU. We have a week to wait. A week before TCU. Night game in Fort Worth. It's either A, the Knights lose and the sky is going to fall, or B, the Knights win and Knights fans actually will start believing that there's a chance that the UCF Knights have a shot at the Big 12 title. Who knows? You don't know right now. I don't know right now. I can't tell you if the Knights have a shot because we don't know how this team actually is. We don't. We didn't know against Boise. We thought we did. Now, John Rice got hurt. There's a lot of extra stuff there, right? But we thought we did. But we found out very quickly that UCF couldn't stop the run. You're going to get a really good early test against TCU this upcoming week. And you're going to see what type of team you are. Can you go in and beat a team that let's call it like it is, you should beat? But we don't know how much grit this team actually has. And we're going to find out. But I think after this game specifically, I feel a million times more confident than I did a week ago. A week ago, I said, I hope next week we get a lot more answers and we feel a lot more confident because I don't know who I'm picking if KJ looks like that. I had some answers today. KJ can do it. The question is, how consistent will this team be against better opponents? That's the question. But this game was good. 2-0 against the team you were supposed to beat. Riding high. We are happy. All right, guys, that's going to do it. I'm going to edit this and get this up. It's late. I'm tired. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, share. Do all that you do. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Like I said, thank you so much for tuning in to the pre- and post-game shows. We're going to keep doing them for game days, so please tune in. Ask any questions you want. We love to do them. Follow me on Twitter. That's where you get all of the updates regarding anything Charge On or UCF related. I will be at the presser tonight, so I will have clips releasing right after that with the defensive and offensive coordinator, specifically Ted Roof. Definitely want to ask Ted Roof about some stuff. And Tim Harris Jr. Both very important, especially heading in to TCU, because those are the only time we'll talk to those guys before TCU. But all right, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for tuning in to Charge On. This has been Charge On presented by Bet Online. We will see you on Thursday.